And like one of the quotes that I pulled was Burke, and he was paraphrasing his quote was like, you should basically want to fire your representative if what they're doing is taking your opinion directly to the court or to the legislature. What should be happening is that he takes many opinions, deliberates upon them for himself because he was the one elected to represent a body of people, and then go into the body of, or into the legislature body, deliberate further, and then that yields product. Happy April 18th, Sean. The strait was open and now it's closed, and now we're going to board some ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it seems like there's active military action going on, right?
I mean, if you're to believe the headlines, I don't, that was one of the best parts of reading Analyst 3 was just the sea of difference between what we see on the head. You don't even have to skim headlines, like actually reading full on articles from Wall Street Journal, or for example, or something, and I'm not even picking on Wall Street Journal. Just generally speaking, it's like no one, so many people are not there. The information that you're getting has been, we all played telephone. We all played telephone in kindergarten. We know how that goes, right? So yeah, I still lean on that for the, I don't know, almost like a tactile feeling of the difference.
Humans have this, I think, quality that when we see images of a place, then we project that image and extrapolate that across a broader region, when in fact it's just one small pixel and not the entire image. And we extrapolate one anecdote or image out to a much larger thing in our head, and that does not often match reality. It mostly does not.
The map is not the territory, right? Would be one. Yeah.
Well said. Yes, exactly.
I think it's also fun to like maybe, especially if you have it within reach, right? Find a photographer that is that produces excellent work within your geographic region, and preferably not like Ansel Adams style landscapes, because you'll see where I'm going. Find a photographer that does amazing work, and then go put yourself exactly in that physical space, preferably urban, because urban can be so full of paradoxes and dichotomies. And if you frame things just right, you're like, it tells a story, and this is what makes great photography. But then you've set foot there and you have your whole field of vision, and you can spin around and you're like, well, 3/4 of this view is trash. This photographer really found the right angle for, something was there, right? So anyway, just like that can, if you want a physical experience of like what Sean's talking about, I think that's one way to go grab it.
Yeah. This also plays into something that I've been thinking about, the difference between China, my limited time there, and the United States. When you are looking at a country like China, if you zoom out, everything looks really impressive. But when you zoom in, you see the flaws. In the United States, when you're zoomed in, you see these things that are really pretty and fancy and fine, like nice restaurants. But then you zoom out and things around it are totally different.
So bottoms up?
Yeah, bottoms
tops up. Or bottoms up, tops down? Is that?
I guess. It's just something I've been thinking about lately, where I see a lot of immense wealth in certain pockets, and then that.
Well, in both countries.
Yeah, in both countries.
The stratification is maybe even crazier in China.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm talking about, like, again, the zooming out, right? When you zoom out, everything is kind of from over there. It has a different look versus then when you zoom in and you see the cracks more. It's a tortured metaphor at best. I admit it.
In part because I would say that the viewer gets to see more of what they want to see.
Yes. And to your point about, a photographer and what they're doing is they're showing you what they want to see, right? And
yeah, good or bad, yeah, whatever story they're trying, or some artists aren't even trying to tell you what story they want you to know. They're just trying to expose you to the thing that makes you tell a story to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. So where are you going? I have an angle if you want, or if you're going someplace, I want to travel.
No, let's take your angle and see where I can interject, because I have
all right. So the 30,000 foot view versus the street view, and contrasting China to the United States, or the United States to Europe, or just so many different, the fabrics of life across the world. If you've been fortunate enough to travel, you get to feel the difference everywhere you go. There's a book that I've been poking around. I haven't this I don't know that I'll be able to read it cover to cover, but like I've been poking around this book. It's called A Pattern Language, and it's attempting to talk about like how I'm sure there's a place where you get in this book where they're like trying to educate people on how certain ways come to be. That's vague. So anyway, like they're trying to show that, like, you know, if you have you heard I worked for a guy for a while that would always say something to the effect of, well, it grew up like the streets of London, meaning there was no plan and there was no, like, you know, city planner, ordinance, zoning, nothing. Like you just built the street or built the building and like things just happened around it. And so if you look at the street map of London, it's organic. It looks nearly like a plant or like arteries or your lungs or something to that effect, right? It is natural. Whereas the grid of Manhattan is completely different and it was totally planned. If you come to my community, they put fake curves in, but it is a 100% already planned. They already know, even where the streets aren't yet, it's already on a map. Like they know where they're building the next street once the population supports it. It's all 100% planned. So therefore there's no organicness, and therefore there is this lack of, well, without organicness, like where is the character? And the character has to then be designed and implanted, and therefore is fake. There's like a direction that I feel like these authors are trying to push toward. And if you've ever spent time walking an old European city versus almost anything in the United States, especially west of the Mississippi, I would say you're hard pressed to disagree. So I've been thinking about that. And then when you said 30,000 foot view and the top down, both governance and resource allocation and everything in China versus the United States, where it's like you can find beautiful pockets, you can find totally nasty little strip mall things. And then there's this disarray at the but the package comes together because there's an organicness. There's a
So what are
locality.
what are the relative pros and cons here of either approach? Let's say this organic growth. I mean, it makes perfect sense the way you're talking about it, and I imagine it's almost fractal too, as well, in the way that probably there's a lot of small patterns repeating and forming larger patterns in those cities. Like you know, looking like a leaf of a tree, then looks like the branch of a tree, then looks like the tree itself. If you know keep zooming out. I would imagine so in a town that grew more organically, you probably have paths that follow natural paths that are like along a river or natural where people naturally flowed. And so you would have streets and the communal lane follow those, and then things grow out from that central stem effectively. What are does the a book A Pattern Language? Yes.
Yeah. We're not going to be able to go too deep because I'm not too deep in it yet.
No, that's fair. But I'm just curious from that, are there any early learnings of, okay, here are some things that are good or bad about either? I think I could see pros and cons to either.
Well, I can definitely see pros and cons to either. No, I want to spend more time with the book to see what they actually, like what kind of arguments that they're making. But what I'm gathering at this point is that the setting that they're making for the reader is one where almost an argument that we've lost touch with the organic, like letting certain things be and letting them grow rather than having a forthright laid out plan. But at the same time, like to your point, do you want the house next door to become like a startup that is going to create the next roundup? You know, like that's what zoning protects you from.
Well, and also, you know, planning about how you're going to put in public works and utilities. There's now things it didn't have plumbing or electricity at the time where they would say, oh, we need to have, it's better if these things are kind of linked up in a certain order so that we can get these utilities to and from.
So much cheaper and better.
And so much in so much more cost effective way. But we've lost a lot of, I think, quirky beauty.
Accidental.
Like, you know, what I imagine. I mean, what you see in like Harry Potter movies, right? I feel like what you see there is more organic. Like it's a little silly, but it's also kind of pretty
but it captures you.
Yeah, it captures you. It makes you smile in a way that
certainly does.
That another strip center with a Chipotle and a vape shop just do not.
Go to Prague and tell me it's not wonderful, right?
I was looking at some pictures recently of the rebuilding of Dresden over the years, and it really took 50 years to do.
Oh, 100%.
But
Stark
you know, from 1980 to like 1950 to 1980 to 2000, you know, it went back to looking like it very much did before, and very organic. That, you know, that organic kind of look and feel to it.
They had a blueprint for that organicness, yeah.
Yeah, they had a blueprint for the organicness. So
That's where I'm like,
it's
I think we can still do this. It's just a matter of, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. That would be an interesting study. Is as they rebuilt, did they then also were able to improve things? I wonder how Dresden compares as a city now to some cities that were older, built around the same time that Dresden originally
that
was, with that same
didn't
feel.
get
Like if
firebombed.
it's like is now Dresden like, oh, it's far superior because it has HVAC? I don't know.
That's why those mini
things.
splits are so popular over there, because there is no HVAC piping in most of the buildings, or so many of the buildings. I shouldn't say most, especially Dresden. Where did Bauhaus start? Like some of that is like the Bauhaus design is partially driven by, I mean, the starkness, but the cheapness. It's not like Germany was sitting on a huge pile of money to rebuild. They had to be rebuilding simply at first, and then the photographs you're looking at Dresden is a richer Germany rebuilding yet to be rebuilt. Center of town sections to bring the beauty back. But there's like low rise, low hung sort of 2-3 story, not even beautiful Bauhaus. Like we're talking like pretty industrial looking housing units, all over Germany.
House always reminds me a little of brutalism in a way.
Connected for sure. I think so.
Yeah, or Scandinavian modernism. Like it's clean, but also I get depressed with it after a while. Yeah.
I think when it's executed with warmth, which is very hard to do, then I really like it. But without that warmth, it feels like it's cookie cutter. Like it's just cheap.
Yeah, I think if you have some natural woods mixed in and some natural textures, it's better. In like interiors, at least from what I'm thinking of the style.
Yeah.
Not that I'm particularly a architectural style or design expert.
So anyway, that was just our little skip over on the pattern. Like
Anyway,
the book got recommended by Patrick Collison or whatever. So I picked it up and just have been, I don't know, very randomly poking through it.
Well, why so randomly? It's not a particularly linear story.
It's kind of big.
Okay.
I'm like, what can I take away from this without investing 20 hours reading it or however long it would take, That's all.
Well, let me know how you work through that. I struggle when I do that. I feel like I never really, you can get, it depends upon the type of book. Like you can't do it with a narrative, but if it's
biography's a narrative, but I often don't care about if I really connect with the character, maybe I'll go back and read the childhood. But for so many times, it's like I don't need to know where great grandpa came to the country and whatever.
Start at age 30 when it gets interesting or whatever, or 20, depending upon what time.
Call me cheap. Oh no, just move.
There's a reason they left the part out of the Bible where Jesus was from age 1 to 30 or whatever, right? It was just. Good editing.
Oh man,
I've been thinking about a phrase this week that I think it was Joe Weisenthal, a little joke he posted. But those that study history are doomed to think it's always repeating. Kind of a twist on the old.
I like
who
that
don't
twist.
know history. Yeah, and it had me thinking a lot about then some other things going on in the world. We see, as we were discussing, the war in the Middle East. It feels very a little. What is this? What is this going to be like? Again, as humans, we always want to find patterns. Say, oh well, this is a mapping of this, and therefore it will be like this, and we can then feel comfort in having some sense of what's going to happen. I guess we don't handle uncertainty well in our brains, and so we always have to try to paint a picture to make us think that we understand, even though we truly don't and never will. Then. And along with that, looking at some numbers in the broader job market, and I listened to a really interesting interview of Catherine Edwards on a show called Prof G Markets, and she had some really interesting data that has been kind of playing in my mind around the AI space and jobs and what we're seeing. And I made up a couple of charts, and I wanted to see what you think of them, Dan.
Let's go.
All right. Are you seeing this? Yes, you should.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is total non-farm payroll employment as collected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't know how much we can trust the recent data. Now that I say this, and I'm wondering, like, okay, what does this mean? But as we look, employment, much like our population, tends to grow pretty linearly over time with interruptions every so often. Where we have on this chart, we're looking at a green line representing starting off in 1939 at about 26 million and currently sitting in 2025 at about 155 million. Along the way, we have a series of green dots showing the years of growth, and then red dots showing our recessionary or depression years. And it seems right now, the last couple of years, we've entered a phase that is a bit of a plateau, which you typically see only before we have one of these red dots pop up. And I'm wondering if we're starting to see in the larger data, not just anecdotal stories, signs, and how much of this is real versus how much of this is also weird things happening in the data because of immigration policies changing the way that
counting or whatever.
Number of peoples are here, the number of people here working, whether this is, it's not necessarily unemployment numbers aren't necessarily spiking in the same way because we're changing our immigration policies too. So it's just gave me a pause this week as I was thinking about this stuff. Dan, what do you have any thoughts on where we currently sit with the labor market?
I think we are in a recession.
I think we are too.
If you remove AI and all the numbers it drives, then I think we're in it. But then, as I've thought this many
healthcare, if you remove
from the job standpoint, yeah,
we are absolutely in a jobs recession.
But why does that even matter? We have a generation that's going to be driving healthcare spend, and will have zero to negative appetite on changing anything regarding healthcare because they're going to need it for the next 20 years. And so you and I will be paying more than our fair share to pay for that.
Absolutely. And we're seeing this in the current.
I mean, one of Prof G's policies. Main lines is we're taking from the young and giving to the old. He does that over and over again. And this is one of the main.
It's starting to stick in my head, frankly, in a way that I'm not happy about.
Anymore. I'm not happy about it either. You've heard me bring it up on the podcast several times, and I'm always every single time we hang up, I'm like, I did the generational thing again, and I don't like that. But like, there's interesting math here and real evidence and a real problem. And so it's not that like this generation is evil and that one's not or anything. It's just like it seems backward. That's all. And I probably should do a deeper study of like, has it always been this way? Has it been twisted more recently? I don't know. Like I should dig in. I should know more rather than like continue the story. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We should know more. Also, I've been starting to think about this as I'm discussing this with people offline in the real world.
There's a real world?
There is. We spend a lot of time talking about these things that, okay, great. This is the way it is. What is anybody going to do about it? Right. And I'm starting to wonder what are the things that can be done. And I think starting to talk about policies that we have visions on that would work and starting to put out positive ideas of things that might be workable changes is how, we need to approach this as an American people and start having open discussions around these things that are hard. Because I think we've been avoiding discussions because we don't want to piss people off. But I think we need to start putting more not positive, but just more ideas out in the world for constructive feedback. So like right now, if you could, pull out Jim O'Shaughnessy's magic microphone and incept an idea of here's a policy I want people to start thinking about. What are some things that we would build an ideal candidate around, for example? Like if we said, okay, right now I don't think there's a candidate that's currently we know about that's going to be running that I'm all that excited about in the next election. And I'm wondering I'm starting to think like, okay, what policies would get me excited? For me, I think one thing would be significant reform to our current tax structure, which is going to have very little appetite to.
Well, Intuit is one of the largest lobbyists for a complicated tax code.
Exactly. Well, and who even cares if Intuit is? That's a good example because they're a company, but how big is Intuit even? If you $10-20 billion market cap, I'm not even sure off the top of my head. So sure, but that's an example of them and other companies that want some complexity because they've built businesses around these friction points. And as if we were to go and change it, you're going to have some actually job destruction there, right? So that would not be ideal for certain areas. But I think to fix this all, we're going to have pockets of pain.
Yes. And how do you get the populace to accept pain? Not accept it, vote for it.
I think you have to that's a good question. Right now, everybody's just been lying about it for the last 100 years.
I hear people talk about willingness. It doesn't seem to translate into any of the candidates.
Stated versus revealed preferences?
Indeed. Because, what needs to be given up or what pain points have to be pushed down, it depends on your station in life and what you've been handed and where you're at and your age and so many other factors where it's like, maybe as a 42-year-old dad in suburbia, I have certain things that like I do not care about.
As we want to try to have a more constructive conversation and start to add to the discussion in positive ways, we want to start to think about what are policies.
How do you communicate possibilities?
that are, yeah, like what are the good policies that we think that would excite us about candidates? What would it take to get other people interested in that? We have kind of a theory that overall we need some sort of a catalyst, right?
Yeah, that's. I thought you were going to say cataclysmic, and I'm like, I hope not.
No, a catalyst.
Yeah,
a catalyst type event, which could be cataclysmic, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Because we have this tendency as a large hive mind that we are, governing ourselves as a people that governs itself ultimately. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some decades, yes, some decades, no. That to change in mass people's habits at the voting booth, you have to have events. Sometimes those are painful events that causes them to take notice of things that they have not been paying attention to, because they are short-term thinking. And even though they might be saying, oh yes, I hate the tax code and the way it's written, when they go into the polling booth, that's not actually what they're pulling the lever for. They're pulling the lever for other things that are actually driving them emotionally, and not rationally thinking about these bigger picture important things. Because truly, unless they're really feeling pain with it today, they're getting by. They're gonna just, they're gonna vote on something that they feel more emotion about. Effectively, there. I think I summed up what we lost. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties, everybody.
But how do you get that? Well, two questions: how much emotionality is good? / how do you remove the emotionality? And is that even the right question? Because eventually, you can already tell.
How do you build the emotionality around what is healthy? So, Dan, in your mind, we have an election coming up in probably 3 years.
Asterisk.
Yeah. So what policies would get you excited for a candidate the candidate that doesn't exist yet, candidate to be named? What's policy number one that gets you excited about them?
Man, so I guess there's two angles that I could go on. One is what I think it would be most beneficial to our system and country, and it might be painful for the first while, and then it would be beneficial. / the other side of it is just I talk my book. I'll get the talk my book part out of the way first. I think that companies that are importing goods in the United States should face the same stringent regulations and costs that U.S. businesses face. I think competition should be fair and equal, and right now it is unequal because most of the foreign competitors have advantages, especially around skirting of tariffs and things like that, as well as legal liability. And those are the main things. Legal liability is huge, and so are tariffs these days. So those two costs, if you don't have to pay them or pay a fraction of them, you are significantly advantaged against your U.S. competitors, and that is the system in which we operate today. That's my book. If I think about this more long-term and zoom out and get big, then I'm a guy that feels like philosophically I want a floor on performance such that people never fall too far. I want, and kind of in the same way that we have softened crises, if you raise the floor such that no one goes below it, you can recover more quickly. And that is economic dynamism. It's giving people a chance to take chances. You feel more free to take risk. And to me, this is the American way. However, the design on our floor has become so disjointed, uneven, so complicated, it is opaque that I don't even know if a floor is really there.
What makes up that floor?
I always get them mixed up. Medicare or Medicaid. One of them's for old people, one of them's for poor people. So that's one of them. What else you got? Unemployment lasts 8 weeks. There's not a lot.
Unemployment that was designed in the 1939, roughly.
Sure, but we all know that there are these step changes, right? So picture yourself as a single mom, you've got 2 kids and you're trying to work 2 jobs, but you get a raise, and that raise actually moves you, not tax brackets, but it moves you in brackets of government handouts, essentially, right? It might be food help, it might be daycare help, all these different things. So your income just went up $3,000, but your take home went down $5,000. Because childcare is stupid expensive, for example, and you just lost your rights to a very necessary thing for you as a single mom working 2 jobs, trying to make it, right? So we disincentivize people to actually go do the things that, in theory, we want them all to do. right? And to have more liquidity. So we bring people out of the job market, we reduce that liquidity. And I think that in and of itself helps reduce opportunity.
And the way that benefits are often structured is, you're getting only a percentage of your paycheck. I believe it varies state to state. I think every state has their own rules, but usually around 25% spread out over the course of several weeks, that you might be eligible for. I think it's up to 6 months, depending upon certain states. So if you are impacted, and let's say you're in an industry or a field that's impacted heavily by a new technology, whether it be AI or a robot on the assembly line, or a new I don't know, whatever. You might not have the same job opportunities in your local area than if you could, say, be a little more geomobile. Not that people want to be geomobile. You often want to stay near your family and your friends, and you don't necessarily want to root up your life. But sometimes you have to make changes. Like, okay, I might not be able to find the equivalent job here, but I can 2 states away. If you had those unemployment benefits pay out more in a lump sum, for example, then maybe you give people a little bit of an egg, a little bit of more of a helping nest egg to make some changes that they need to make at those times. In most states, it's more of a one size fits all approach rather than having any rules that seem to actually work for people at different levels as they move from, as you pointed out, one income level to another. Ultimately,
and I think this payout by the week or whatever kind of basically says we don't trust you.
Yeah.
So I think also one like the lump sum of like, hey, if you have to make a big change, now you get the money to go do it. I think that's brilliant. I loved her argument around that. But then the other part of it is like, this will actually hurt some people. Like that framework and giving money in a lump sum up front will hurt some people because it will go to the gambling or the alcohol store or whatever instead of where it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
But these, at some point you've got to be like, you can't be, I don't know, you got to make a decision of like, are we the nanny state or are we going to like make bets on, hey, we think the vast majority of people can do better with this. And so we're going to go with that. There are just some downsides and we are going to accept them.
I mean, there's downsides of the current system.
Agreed. Yeah.
So we all would say that we don't think the current system is perfect. And yet we're so afraid to changing it because, but there's a downside to that change. It's like, well, yes, that's how we have to iteratively get better. And we're not going to
put a sunset on the rule.
Try to predict all the second order effects we want. We're not going to predict.
Put a sunset on the rule. Do it for 5 years and then do a study and decide, through the legislature, whether you're going to extend it 25 or kill it, or I don't know. I think every bill should have an automatic sunset clause.
Anything involving the power of the purse, absolutely, I would agree with that because we have too many things that it's like the sticky service, a stupid app that you're paying for a recurring fee at once a year that you don't even know that you miss that you paid.
And there's no cancel button online, and you have to call.
You just forget that you're doing it, and it's like, we're still funding this research into nematodes and we didn't get any value out of it. We should really kill it, or whatever.
Kill that toad. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever thing we're funding. Sometimes they need period. And I think we're also, I think, being a little short-sighted in terms, not fully appreciative of the Congressional Budget Office and the process that they do go through to analyze this and look at how things are being funded every year. So I know there is some level of this going on, but it does feel like a lot of things live on in perpetuity that need more regular revision. We don't have a system built up. Our system allows us to revise the rules, but it's very difficult.
Some would say that it should be.
It should be.
The thing I just published on Prometheus was around like turning opinion into judgment, or like that's kind of how I worded it. And like how you do that is through the idea around our government and the people who designed it was that deliberation is that every individual comes with opinions, but then you need to get groups of people together to take those opinions, deliberate upon them, to yield judgment that becomes the law of the land, right? And like one of the quotes that I pulled was Burke, and he was paraphrasing his quote was like, you should basically want to fire your representative if what they're doing is taking your opinion directly to the court or to the legislature. What should be happening is that he takes many opinions, deliberates upon them for himself because he was the one elected to represent a body of people, and then go into the body of, or into the legislature body, deliberate further, and then that yields product. And I think where we're all sitting here today going, we're pretty unimpressed with the product. And therefore people have a will to change the system. And I guess my angle is more like, I think we need to change the people. And we might have to be asking harder questions about ourselves as voters in order to actually yield that. But maybe I'm too bottoms up, a pattern language.
Well, is it also then the system that we have yields not the right type of person?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the voters are messed up and don't know the system and don't appreciate it, and therefore vote more short-sightedly than they would otherwise. And that yields candidates who are signalers and weather vanes.
If we could redesign it today, I wonder what it would look like. Would we be more of a? Would we keep the republic set up? Would we be more of a direct democracy? How would you reoptimize
I don't want that.
it?
I guess that's my point. It's like I don't want to ask these people that question.
Yeah.
Right. I want to change. I want to re-educate. Man, I don't like that word because it has so much weight to it. It's like it's bottoms up. Like we stopped teaching.
Remind.
Yeah, more. Yeah. It's not. I'm not even trying to make you think a certain way. I am positing that there is a basic level of understanding that was not taught of how does the U.S. government work and why. The why being probably more important, right? Like I think I've been through some of the classes where it's like, well, check this. It's a bicameral Congress and there's 3 bodies in the government, and it's like I got all the boxes checked, but like why? And I'm lost on people's understanding of the why or their appreciation of it, what they're giving up if they choose to get rid of it, because what we have is abnormal. It is against history. I would say.
But we have no way of knowing. We say that.
Oh, we know thousands of human history where they were mostly ruled by one person who got the wand from his bloodline, and I use his deliberately there. Very
So I mean, we are in. So yeah, okay, that's what you mean when we say we're in an abnormal point in history where it's that's why it's abnormal. I'm sorry.
We have representative government. This is not normal in human history. This is abnormal.
How long can it go on before we start saying this is now the new normal? I mean, I would argue that we have established a new level of normalcy around this type of government as you see it around the world now in different flavors and different, slightly different versions, slightly more or less,
slightly more representative or less representative.
Yeah. But in the last 200-300 years, it's definitely blossomed into more representative countries around the world. So now that it's more of a globally, it's in our global hive mind. This is the way things are moving and going, at least.
But the disposition toward it is getting negative worldwide. No, or am I too online?
Is it
on that?
I don't know. I don't know that it's actually getting negative towards the representative government as much as it is
the representatives
towards the I think more the process and how we get the representatives there as much as anything.
Yeah, but then what's the answer? So like another thesis that I keep running into as I posit different positions is that all the positions are negation. Like they know what they want to tear down, but they do have no idea what they want to build. And if you don't know why we have this government built this way, I say you have no idea what you want to build. Like if you can't appreciate what we have, then because what we have is pretty great. There's just a whole mess around it that I would say has nothing to do with the system of government and is just barnacled on top. And maybe we need to clean off some barnacles, which is something that I think you can sell to a lot of American people. And it was sold to them, and they were sold down the river, if you will, because it was just all performative culture war instead of actually examining and basically dismantling parts of the government and to asking tough questions of like, let's see if we don't need this for a couple of years. And it's going to hurt, but we're going to do it in stages. Here's we've whiteboarded the process. We can call it whatever you want. It'll be a big.
What if instead of electing an executive, what if instead of electing an executive for 2 4-year terms, we just gave him 1 6-year term? Like you don't get to get reelected. You get to get in once.
That's an interesting idea.
You get a little bit longer to do it because a lot of these ideas take time to say, hey, I have a 5-year plan. Year 1 is us, detailing that out and getting votes, and then years 2 through 6 is us executing that.
Well, and the most energy is in that first 4-year term, but you're still trying to get reelected. So you can't take too much risk, right? And then by the time the year 5 rolls around, you're looking more and more lame duck. It's just how it happens. So this that's an interesting question. 1 term, 6 years. You have 1 shot, get it done.
Because
don't mess it up for your party, though.
Oh yeah, exactly. Don't mess it up for your party, and you still have the party system that's at play there to keep some consistency and obviously
bounded guardrails or whatever. Yeah,
and ultimately, I think
that's an interesting question.
It would probably be in our best interest to force more turnover in some of the branches of government.
Do other
more term limits in general?
Countries have like age limits or something? I don't think, with cognitive decline, I think 80.
We have a lower bound. Why don't we have an upper bound? This
Agreed.
is a good question.
Yeah. If I can't be president until I'm 35, then I mean, all the great scientists
85.
come up with all their theories like around 25 years old, right? So I don't why. Yeah. Not that governance and coming up with new theories are equated, but yeah.
I don't know how they settled on 35. It feels like, I don't know that that's the right age. I guess it is. They had to pick something, right?
They did, yeah.
So you could
looking around themselves, they were like, at what age are your children like completely independent? And they're like, yeah, 35. And then these days they're like, I haven't had kids yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's the dynamics changed
totally
a good bit. At 35, it's like, oh, you're kind of old. You made it through all that.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You're a
senior.
You're an old fogey at that point.
Pneumonia's going to take you out next quarter.
Yeah, you've beat the odds.
Pretty much.
So I wonder. Yeah, again, if you were to sit down, founding fathers, in a room today with like the technology that we have, and it's a lot easier to vote now. Like counting all those votes and getting information out there. Like, would we have set up the rules a little? I'm not saying remake them, but just what. I think we would tweak it if we could, I think because the Second Amendment would probably be written a lot differently because the types of weapons have changed. I'm sure that.
Well, and the threat of is different too. Though that was written when it was like, I mean, Britain was still invading us. You needed.
Although maybe you can argue that has held up the way it has is a testament to a good set of rules. But we do like to talk about it, though.
Yeah, I would change gerrymandering. We already have counties, like just make county or something, I'm gonna lack specificity with both these positions, but the one is gerrymandering is gone. Like there's no, we say counties are the line and that's it or whatever. And it's the lay of the land. And then something
alternative
around campaigning and like limiting the time with which campaigning can happen.
And
I don't know what I have to think about that more. But
the more I think about that, it gets sticky because then I also start saying, well, that's a violation of First Amendment rights then. And
I see.
Because
well, what about commercial? Like you can't spend. I mean, you can go on someone's podcast, you can talk to the voters, you can fly around the country, like do all that stuff, but there's no commercials. Nothing on public broadcast. I mean, now it's all streaming and stuff. Like I don't know, no advertising whatsoever. And you'd have to find lawyers to like write those words correctly, but something to that effect, where like the advertising can only happen 2 months ahead of voting.
Yeah, I think a time gate is probably the most clean way to do it, where it's just saying we're going to limit the timing, so it's a shorter season.
What do you have?
People are still going to be talking. People are still going to be out there, campaigning in spirit, but maybe changing the structure of, it feels the only way you're going to be able to ever have anybody running is if they are very, very well off. You don't see many career military people running for as many as you used to, I don't believe.
Yeah.
So this is my perception, but I should go pull some data to validate this. But I think, back in 80 years ago, you'd probably you had more people that had come up through the military into a public office.
Okay. Another bottoms up question for you then. Are we actively pushing away the very people that we want? Meaning the canceling, the woke mob, the whatever, all of that has basically chased away the best and brightest because like it's just not worth it. You already have to be a little bit like dirty cowboy to be even wanting in the game these days.
I almost want to be like, we should be able to nominate people that don't want to run. It's like,
know.
nope, Steve, you're running. You don't have a choice. We've nominated you, but I don't want to do it. Nope. We like you. You're the reluctant leader we need.
The American guillotine. Yeah. We put him out to pasture. Yes. That saying has changed meanings.
Yes, it has.
I don't know.
I think our system has limited the type of personality that is willing to enter the arena or that wants to enter the arena. And there are...
I mean, I think of exceptional business people and exceptional military leaders, and we just don't see them anymore.
Yeah, we don't. You see fewer people that come through. Yeah, you see more people that are career politicians that are just in it for, like, they want to be in politics and they got in politics and that's what they do. Not that, hey, I have this background that now I want to go and that I feel gives me an understanding of what my community needs and is going to benefit the way that life improves, or that's going to help life improve in my community with the decisions I make. Now it's, I want to be powerful and famous, and I want everybody to fawn over me, and I want to put up monuments to my greatness because I am so great, so great, so great. Not asking what we can do for the country, but what the country can do for us. Yeah,
that has flipped. But yeah.
And I
mean, JFK said it in the 60s, right? So if he had to say it on the bully pulpit, then it was a problem then too. It's a universal, it's always there. It's just a matter of like how much. And I feel like the much is a bit much now on people's orientation towards what's in it for me rather than what's in it for my children or something. It doesn't even have to be like so giving an empathetic that people are like, well, that's like theorizing, or you've gone off the deep end, or there's people that are they're fine with a small circle or something. But it's like even just thinking about your own children, it seems like people.
So you just said something that gave me a thought. Family sizes have fallen over the last 100 years from average of 4 or 5 kids to 1 to 2 kids. If you're having fewer kids, if families are having fewer kids, are they less likely to be thinking longer term? Like, does having a larger follow-up generation behind you, like, make you think more longer term? I don't know if it would impact it or not. Like, me of having no kids versus you having kids, I wonder how, like, that biases our differences, even. Like, I'm just thinking on, like, a societal level, again, that hive mind level. If more people have more kids, are they...
I feel like if you have more kids, then you end up saying something to the effect of, they got to make it. Because you can't afford, in this world, like 2 kids, that's $4,000 a month if you want them full-time care, right?
Jeez.
If you live in a place that, like, I mean, there's other ways to do it. That's an inflated price, but like once you hit a certain level, that's pretty much what you're going to pay. And it's insane. And that's if there's no like wait times, you might have to have a rugrat rolling around with you while you work a full-time job because there is no care and you are on 3 wait lists. Like these are real things in today's society. So I don't know. Is it that the parents feel completely exhausted and basically like raped over the coals of having to raise 2 kids in today's world versus having 5 kids back in the day? Like you needed that farm labor, period. And then after that, if there was money left over, you were lucky. But every kid had to make it. There was no, I mean, the future generation was just like, yeah, maybe around decision making, but it wasn't like.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
We just seem to be on this mindset of that people used to think more.
Yeah, we might be wrong about that.
More communally, and I wonder if that's fundamentally incorrect.
Or more communally, but I guess where I'm going is like we need to think more communally, but our world has gotten bigger. Our country has gotten bigger. Our ability to pay attention to what goes on has gotten bigger. And yet our lives on the ground have gotten either smaller or more dispersed, right? I can't sit here and say like within my community, I know this many people and I've met the mayor and blah, 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 right? Whereas I feel like that was pretty, you go back 50 plus years, that was much more normal. I mean, you and I grew up in the same town. I had a dad that was a little connected or whatever, but like I knew the mayor, I knew several mayors, like played at their house. Like,
well, I mean, is that just about the size of this town though? Like, is that because like if we move back to Lafayette, would we be buds with the mayor?
Could be, but wasn't that more normal in the farming villages? Whereas now we've all
because it's about the size of the community.
We've all coagulated into the big cities because that's where the economic that's where the opportunity is, and therefore I'm going back to community. Like, how do you? Where's I
that's
think there's
ruralism versus urbanism.
I think there's
No?
I agree with you, but that's not what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I don't believe that people are being as communal today. Period. Small town, big town, doesn't matter. They are on Instagram, and I don't believe that gets you the fabric that yields the very thing that we're talking about needing. Right? There's a disconnect.
What is that fabric made up of? Is that fabric made up of not books, or I mean, not phones, right? Not iPhones. More books.
You said books. I think that's an interesting angle because it still doesn't put you in contact with the very people that are different from you.
Or church? Do everybody needs to go to church again?
I'm not going to say that would fix it. Because you entangle it with religion there, but I think community. I don't know. There's something about mixing. We need more mixing. The idea I have held on to for years, and it's like, how? Okay, well, you were asking me like what policy decisions I would make like 1 year after high school, 100% mandatory for every single pupil in the United States, and it would involve some sort of community service. Such you could choose the military if you wanted to, as you currently can, and there are benefits that come with it. But if you don't choose that, then there's a mandatory 1 year active service, and you're going to be plugged into this probably way over big and bloated apparatus that would mix Americans with other Americans. There would be different walks of life. There would be different understandings of life. There would be different geographic locations. And we would all, over time, that would create a fabric that I don't believe is there anymore, that perhaps existed at one point in ways that I can't quite articulate.
I really like that, especially if you could work in an angle on like that possible service being working on large public works infrastructure projects. So building a high-speed rail network in Texas or California or the Northeast, where we need trained, skilled people. You can go into this public works department and get some trade school training and, for being an electrician or a welder or a plumber or a
civil engineer,
PLC programmer, So you get some
project
basic
manager
level, some initial associates level type training in some of these
and exposure to like
go into some. If you really like it, then you come out and you go into and you finish off your 4-year degree with it, or you
come out of there going
further,
like, guess what? I need to change my major.
Yeah, and also then we as a society get the benefit of some large infrastructure improvements that we desperately need in this country. I don't know. I could get behind that.
I can get behind it, at least spiritually. Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff underneath there that would have to get worked out. The public works part is like, it's so complicated. I wonder, can you get, fresh out of high school people to be really, that's a huge undertaking. And I'm thinking more like community service, it's like just, there's a lot of stuff that could be done that doesn't necessarily need really any training. It's just, and it's not about like how productive are we? It's more that we've just smashed all the young people together and we've mixed them up into a pool so that they all at least start off their adult lives with this understanding of there are people different from me. And some of those people come from families with generational wealth. Some of those people come from families that have never seen, like, I remember doing a high school program in Washington, D.C., and one of my mates in my little cohort came from Tennessee, and he got indoor plumbing 3 years prior. I didn't know people didn't have indoor plumbing. And I didn't even grow up in a super fancy thing. It was like extremely middle class. So I don't know. This mixing, I keep going back to it.
That wasn't all that long ago. Yeah.
No, I'm not that old.
Yeah. Indoor plumbing. Yeah, that seems like such a basic utility.
Indoor plumbing. So like the timeline on that would have been like 1998, 99. This kid got indoor plumbing. His family got indoor plumbing.
We're going to party like it's 1999. Poop in the house. Okay, I see what you're saying. That for the public works things, you would need,
this is like an intangible benefit I'm trying to optimize for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. More tax breaks for places where people actually gather in person, for
interesting
pubs and for pickleball courts and for things that bring people physically together into a common space. I think would be an interesting policy to support some small businesses that could grow and also build your community in interesting ways, and leaving it kind of open on what those things would be. I'd list some things that maybe I would go to, but hopefully there were people out there with better ideas.
Yeah, totally. And then all of a sudden the Augusta Golf Club is like, Sweet. We're going to be tax free.
Yeah, there's you'd have to have some structure to it, I'm sure.
Totally.
Up to a certain
felt like
size,
a layup. I had to hit it.
Yeah. Well, no, and Augusta gets enough benefits as they do, right? Anyway, I think we need more programs and policies that are going to engender this togetherness rather than looking at phones. And I think the younger generation is starting to rebel. And I think if you look at some stats that I feel like I've seen lately, where
I think there's appetite.
They're doing more things in that physical space, and this, probably some interesting growth opportunities in terms of small business if you can figure out what it is that you can use to capture their attention and their future dollars, but and hopefully in a positive way that adds something back in a not a zero sum way.
Totally.
All right. Well, Dan,
I think there's some interesting ideas here. What?
Yeah. No, there are some interesting ideas. What we should do, hey, I'm going to actually give Lee some instructions here for Claude, is to start tracking some of these ideas in terms of a candidate, and let's start to build our ideal candidate profile. Let's talk the person that we want into existence. They don't exist yet, but maybe if we put our combined reality tunnels together and design them, we can the perfect candidate and put the profile out there and get everybody thinking the same way, and that person will soon matriculate.
Well, and also like steelman this candidate, right? Like put the idea out there, and if we got
what's logically
feedback,
inconsistent about this?
Yeah. Or like
I feel like I have a lot of positions where I'm like, oh, I like this idea and I like this idea, but they're logically inconsistent because to have one you can't have the other, and you don't think about that as
see it
the
right away.
bigger.
Yeah. This is a fun experiment. I like it.
It'll be.
Yeah. Why don't you run, Sean?
Because I'm not insane.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it?
Tired at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I honestly, massive respect for the people that work in some of these institutions where it feels like you would be constantly on the go and no rest. And at least if you're doing it in the way that I perceive to be correct, it would be very intense. Also, why it makes sense to have an upper age limit on some of it.
I agree. Yeah. Multiple reasons to have an upper age.
Yeah.
What you would want, what you hope, is that you're electing someone who's just wise enough, right? Has lived just enough in order to be skilled at decision making and delegation, and has built a network where they can reach up to those upper levels, right? To reach the wise person in his or her, or something like that for perspective. Yeah, which, whatever. Rather than maybe we need to set a higher age limit on like the cabinet. Like they have to be 60. You have to have grown-ups in the room.
Yeah, like the cabinet has to be seniors.
You could be 28, but
it has to be
There's some
or one or the other. Like that between who we're putting there and how we're incentivizing them. There's a lot of things we could change and getting ourselves better public leaders.
Yeah, 100%. All right, shall we leave it there?
Let's leave it there.
All right. It's always good, Sean. Thanks for the hang.
Always great, Dan. Thanks for joining in, everybody out there in listener land. Have a great next week.
Agreed. See you.